What if the very thing you fear most, your wound, your grief, your heartbreak, was not your enemy, but your cure? What if the pain you've been running from your entire life was in fact the secret door to your transformation? Rumi dares us to believe exactly this, that the place where we are most broken is the place where the light enters. He is not speaking as a distant philosopher, not as an academic scribbling abstract theories, but as a man whose own heart had been torn open, a mystic who knew that the universe speaks through longing, through loss, and through love. From the very first breath of his poetry, Rumi confronts us with this paradox, that what wounds us most deeply is also the doorway to our becoming. He reminds us again and again, try to accept the changing seasons of your heart, even if you have never known such seasons before. His teaching is simple and yet revolutionary. Our pain, our joy, our silence, even our restless desire, are not enemies to resist, but teachers to embrace. Where others see obstacles, he sees openings. Where others see emptiness, he sees the place where light enters. To Rumi, every human being is a manuscript written in invisible ink, waiting to be read by the soul. Our lives are not random noise or meaningless chaos, but coded love letters from the divine. His vision turns the modern world upside down. We are taught to seek comfort, certainty, and control. He whispers something else entirely. Let go, release, surrender. Do not cling to control, for the tides of the soul will move regardless. He dares us to step beyond the fragile walls of ego into the raw, boundless current of being itself. His voice calls across centuries. Do not seek love, but search for the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. What he offers is not consolation, but a summons. Wisdom is not a structure of thought, but the burning away of thought until only silence remains. And in that silence, he says, God is waiting. Silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation. Here is where Rumi begins, with fire. He asks us to enter the fire of our own transformation. Try to accept your wound, he insists, for the wound is the place where the light enters you. To grasp the depth of this truth, we must not only analyze his words as historians of the 13th century, but enter his world as seekers who long to feel what he felt. He lived in an age of upheaval, when empires rose and fell, when war and migration carved wounds into the land. Yet through that turbulence, he became a sanctuary of timeless wisdom. To hear Rumi is to hear not only a man of his century, but a voice of eternity. His message is not limited to parchment and ink, but breathes still, tearing down illusions with every verse. He tells us, be like a tree, let the dead leaves drop. Be like a candle, melt yourself, and give your light to the darkness. Be like the ground, be crumbled, so wildflowers can grow where you are. These are not metaphors meant to soothe, they are instructions. He is daring us to transform our wounds into doorways, our suffering into sacred invitations. So when he says, do not get lost in your pain, he does not mean run from it or pretend it does not exist. He means go deeper, stay with it, listen. Because what you think is the end of your story is in truth the beginning of your transformation. Your grief is not a dead weight, but a teacher. Your sorrow is not punishment, but preparation. Every wound, he reminds us, is already an opening. Every ache, no matter how unbearable, is a door to the beloved. Rumi often tells us that longing itself is holy. He says, there is a candle in your heart, ready to be kindled. There is a void in your soul, ready to be filled. You feel it, don't you? We spend so much of our lives trying to silence this longing. We distract ourselves with possessions, with noise, with endless activity, hoping the ache will vanish. Yet the ache never leaves. It waits, quietly pulsing at the center of our being. Rumi does not call this ache a weakness. He calls it proof. Proof that we belong to the beloved. Proof that we were made for more than this fleeting world. Thirst is not a curse. Thirst is a compass. It points us toward the river that never dries. The human heart is shaped like a vessel, not to be filled with gold or status, but to be filled with love. We mistake this love for ordinary desire, but Rumi warns us, every desire is a shadow of the real longing. Beneath every hunger is the soul's hunger for God. Think of the times you have achieved what you thought would satisfy you. You earned the praise, you bought the object, you won the prize. For a moment, you felt complete. But then, as if a secret door opened inside you, the thirst returned, whispering that this was not the end. That whisper is not failure. That whisper is the call of eternity. Rumi writes, "Be like a thirsty man who sits beside a river but cannot drink until he bows down. The bowing is surrender. The surrender is forgetting the illusion that we can control or contain love. Love is not ours to possess. Love is the current that carries us, the river that flows whether we resist or not. To drink from it, we must kneel. We must forget our pride, forget our defenses, forget even our names. Longing, then, is not to be extinguished, but deepened. The more we allow ourselves to feel it, the more we are drawn into the truth behind it." When Rumi met Shams of Tabriz, his life was set ablaze. It was not comfort that Shams gave him, but fire. A fire that burned away every false certainty until only love remained. That meeting was nothing less than the embodiment of longing fulfilled, not through possession, but through annihilation of the self in the flame of the beloved. And so Rumi urges us not to fear thirst, but to honor it, to treat it as sacred. He tells us, "Don't get lost in your loneliness. You have received the strength of longing for the friend. With that longing, join the caravan of seekers and walk into the desert of love. When you feel the emptiness inside you, do not curse it. Do not rush to fill it with distractions. Sit with it. Listen to it. That emptiness is the echo of the infinite calling you back. It is not punishment. It is promise. A promise that you were made for union, and that every ache is a map leading you closer." Rumi says, "Love is the whole thing. We are only pieces." From the moment he speaks of love, he does not mean the fragile affection that rises and falls with circumstance. He does not mean the fleeting attraction that burns quickly and fades into ash. He means the love that tears through the soul like lightning, the love that transforms, the love that does not ask politely, but demands surrender. To Rumi, love is not an ornament. Love is the very architecture of reality. Without love, nothing moves. The planets would not turn, the stars would not shine, the grass would not grow, and the heart would not beat. Love is the invisible thread that binds everything to everything else, the secret pulse of the universe. When he says love, he means the furnace that holds the cosmos together. But this furnace does not warm without also burning. To step into love is to step into fire. Rumi speaks again and again of burning. He writes, "Set your life on fire. Seek those who fan your flames. Fire consumes, yes, but fire also purifies. Gold must pass through fire to lose its dross. The soul must pass through love to lose its illusions. To love is to let every false self be burned away until only the eternal remains. We resist this because we fear pain. We cling to the safety of half-hearted affection, to controlled comfort, to polite arrangements. But Rumi says that love is not polite. Love is not safe. Love is a hurricane tearing down the house of the ego. Love is the earthquake that shakes the ground we thought was solid. And yet, in the rubble, what do we find? Not ruin, but freedom. Not emptiness, but fullness. When Rumi met Shams, it was not a gentle embrace, but an eruption. Two souls recognized each other not as teacher and student, but as mirrors of the beloved. Their love was not bound by convention or explanation. It was an annihilation of separation. In that meeting, Rumi's scholarly world collapsed. The man of books and sermons became the man of fire and poetry. Out of that fire rose thousands of verses that still burn across centuries. Rumi does not offer us romance. He offers us transformation. He dares us to say yes to the fire. He whispers, "Try to accept the changing seasons of your heart, even if they bring sorrow." He dares us to see sorrow, not as proof of failure, but as evidence that love is at work, rearranging the furniture of the soul. Think of a candle. The candle must melt to give light. Think of wood in a fireplace. It must be consumed to give warmth. Why would love be different? To be touched by love is to melt, to burn, to dissolve. And yet, in that very dissolving, we shine brighter than before. So when Rumi speaks of love, he is not offering comfort. He is offering transformation. He is calling you into fire. He is saying, do not stand at the edge of the flame, analyzing. Step in. Let the fire undo you. For only what is eternal can survive the burning, and only what is eternal is truly you. Rumi tells us, silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation. These words have echoed through centuries because they strike at the very core of human restlessness. We live surrounded by voices, demands, arguments, and endless chatter, both outside and within. The mind races, the tongue fills the air with noise, and the soul grows weary. Rumi points us to another way, the way of silence. But his silence is not emptiness. His silence is fullness. It is not the absence of meaning, but the presence of a deeper meaning that cannot be spoken. Imagine a vast ocean. Words are like cups dipped into the sea. Each one contains a drop, but the ocean itself cannot be captured. Silence is the ocean. Words are only drops. Why is silence so powerful? Because in silence, the masks fall. In silence, the roles we play dissolve. In silence, we stop trying to convince the world of who we are and begin to hear who we have always been. Silence is the mirror in which the soul sees its true reflection. This is why Rumi insists that silence is not weakness, but strength, not emptiness, but revelation. He says, listen to the silence. It has much to say. In silence, we begin to hear the subtle voice of the beloved, a voice not made of sound, but of presence. This is the voice that whispers beneath our thoughts, the one we often drown with noise. Rumi's genius is to remind us that the beloved does not shout. The beloved waits in the quiet corners of our hearts, speaking in the pauses between words. Think of the moments in your life when silence was unavoidable. Standing at a funeral when no words could soothe the grief. Watching a sunset so vast that speech seemed trivial. Holding the hand of someone you love so deeply that language would only weaken the truth. Those moments are not void. They are full. They are the beloved stepping close, asking for nothing but your presence. Rumi writes, the quieter you become, the more you can hear. He does not mean hearing with the ears, but with the heart. The heart hears what the mind cannot. The heart understands without explanation. This is why he often sat in silence for hours, listening not to the noise of the world, but to the music of the soul. Silence is frightening for many because it strips away distraction. In silence, we cannot hide from ourselves. We must face our wounds, our longing, our emptiness. But Rumi says this is exactly why silence heals. To be still is to allow the wound to speak, and in speaking, it reveals the doorway to light. Silence is the womb where transformation takes place. So when he says silence is the language of God, he is not offering a metaphor only. He is giving us a practice. Sit, be still. Allow silence to open its mouth. Do not rush to fill it. Wait. Listen. In that waiting, you will hear the beloved. You will discover that silence is not the absence of life, but the presence of eternity. Rumi tells us, die before you die. Few words are more challenging to the ego, yet few carry such profound truth. He does not mean physical death, though that too is inevitable. He speaks of the death of illusion, the death of control, the death of the self that clings to possessions and pride. Only when this self dies can the true self be born. Death to Rumi is not an ending, but a doorway. He writes, "Don't grieve. Anything you lose comes round in another form." In this vision, death is transformation. The seed buried in the ground must dissolve before the flower can bloom. The caterpillar must vanish before the butterfly can take flight. Death is not annihilation, but passage. Our culture fears death, avoids its presence, hides it behind curtains of denial. Rumi walks straight into it, holding its hand as a friend. He tells us that the soul is not destroyed, but revealed. What dies is only the temporary costume. What remains is the essence, luminous, eternal, boundless. To grieve without hope is to forget that loss is also the mother of renewal. He says, try to accept the changing seasons of your heart. Just as winter strips the trees bare, so too must we face the winters of the soul. But winter is never the final word. Spring waits beneath the snow. Rumi invites us to see every ending as a beginning in disguise. Think of the times in your life when something precious ended, a relationship, a dream, a chapter of your story. The grief was real, but over time, new life appeared. Out of the ashes came a spark. Out of the collapse came a seed of something unexpected. This is the rhythm of existence. Life and death are not enemies, but dance partners, circling each other endlessly. Rumi himself knew this truth intimately. When Shams disappeared, whether by exile, murder, or divine arrangement, history is unclear. Rumi's grief was unbearable. The friend who had awakened his soul was gone. Yet from that grief poured thousands of verses, each a flame lit from the fire of loss. What seemed like death gave birth to a poetry that still breathes centuries later. Out of absence came presence. Out of silence came song. He teaches us that to live fully, we must learn to die daily, to let die the old self, the rigid certainties, the clinging fears. Every surrender is a small death, and every death is a chance for new life. To cling is to stagnate. To release is to flow. So when Rumi urges us to die before we die, he is giving us a gift. He is saying, do not wait for the body's final breath to discover freedom. Practice dying now. Let illusions fall away. Let the ego collapse. In that dying, you will find that life is not threatened, but expanded. Death is not the end of love. Death is the proof that love is stronger than everything that fades. Rumi tells us, Don't get lost in your loneliness. You have received the strength of longing for the friend. With that longing, join the caravan of seekers and walk into the desert of love. To him, the heart is not a private chamber locked away from the world. It is a mirror, polished by love, in which the face of the beloved is revealed. We often think of the heart as belonging only to us, as if it were a possession hidden in the chest. But Rumi sees it differently. The heart is not a container. The heart is a window. It is an opening through which eternity peers. When the heart is clouded with pride, greed, or fear, the window fogs. But when the heart is washed with longing, the glass clears, and suddenly the whole universe shines through. This is why he says that relationships are not distractions from the spiritual path, but mirrors for it. Every friend, every rival, every stranger you meet is polishing or scratching the surface of your heart. The ones who wound you are not your enemies. They are tools in the hands of the beloved, chiseling away the rough stone to reveal the gem beneath. The ones who comfort you are not your possessions. They are echoes of divine tenderness, reminding you of the source. Rumi's own encounter with Shams was the perfect example of this truth. Shams did not come to make Rumi comfortable. He came as fire, as mirror, as storm. He shattered the scholar's pride, stripped him of certainty, burned away the husks of knowledge, and revealed the blazing jewel of love hidden within. What seemed at first like friendship was in fact the mirror of God, held so close that Rumi could not look away. And so he tells us, try to accept the changing seasons of your heart. People will enter and leave your life. Some will bring joy, some will bring sorrow, some will break you open. Each of them is a mirror. Do not curse the mirrors that show you wounds. Do not cling to the mirrors that flatter you. Instead, look through them. See the beloved gazing back at you from every face. Think of a mirror in a dark room. At first, you see only your own reflection. But then someone opens a window, and suddenly the mirror reflects light from beyond. This is what happens when the heart is cleared. It no longer reflects only the self, but the sun beyond the self. The beloved's face is not separate from yours, but hidden within it, waiting for you to see. This is why Rumi speaks of love not as possession, but as recognition. To love another is not to own them, but to glimpse the beloved shining through their form. To be loved is not to be admired, but to be seen as a mirror of eternity. So he urges us, polish the mirror of your heart. Let longing be the cloth that wipes away dust. Let sorrow be the hand that scrapes away the tarnish. In time, the mirror will shine so brightly that you will see no separation at all. Only the beloved, gazing back with infinite eyes. Rumi tells us, try to accept the changing seasons of your heart, yet our instinct is to resist. We clutch at the branches of certainty even as the storm shakes the tree. We tighten our grip on life, desperate to steer it towards safety, forgetting that the river of existence cannot be held in our hands. Control is the great illusion and the heaviest burden we carry. Think of a sailor caught in a tempest. He clings to the wheel, knuckles white, convinced that if he only steers hard enough, he can calm the sea. But the sea does not obey. The waves rise and fall according to their own rhythm. The sailor's grip does not change the ocean. It only exhausts his strength. In the same way, our frantic attempts to control life do not prevent its storms. They only wear us down. Rumi writes, try to accept being ground, be crumbled, so wildflowers can grow where you are. The grinding is the loss of control. The crumbling is the breaking of pride, and out of that surrender, something miraculous happens. New life appears. We discover that letting go does not lead to chaos, but to harmony. The universe is not against us. The universe is teaching us to trust. Control is born from fear. Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of death. But Rumi tells us that what we fear is already passing away. The house we cling to will crumble. The body we polish will fade. The reputation we defend will be forgotten. Why waste our strength resisting the inevitable? Instead, he dares us to fall into the flow, to surrender not as defeat, but as liberation. He says, "When I tried to control everything, I was miserable. When I gave up control, I found joy." For Rumi, surrender is not passivity. It is participation in a deeper rhythm. It is to move with the current instead of against it, to discover that the river knows its destination better than we do. Consider the clenched fist. It cannot receive anything new. Only when it opens can it hold, can it give, can it receive. Our obsession with control is the clenched fist of the soul. We hold so tightly to our plans that we leave no room for grace. Rumi whispers, "Open your hand. Let go. What you release will not vanish. It will return transformed." When Shams entered Rumi's life, he shattered the scholar's control. He disrupted the routines, burned the sermons, threw open the windows. Rumi could have resisted, clung to his status, his certainty, his authority. But in surrendering to the chaos of love, he found freedom. He discovered that control was not safety, but prison. So he tells us, be like a swimmer. Stop thrashing and let the water carry you. Trust is not naive. Trust is wisdom. Trust is the recognition that life is larger than our grasp, and that the beloved moves in ways we cannot plan. Release the burden of control, and you will find that life is not something to manage, but something to marvel at. Rumi writes, "Don't get lost in your desires. They will take you farther from home. Desire makes you run in circles, while love brings you to the center." Few teachings are more difficult for us to hear, because desire feels like the very engine of our lives. We wake each day hungry for something: money, approval, comfort, pleasure. Yet Rumi insists that desire is not the same as love. Desire is a veil, thin but powerful, that covers the face of the beloved. To Rumi, every desire has its root in the soul's thirst for God. But when the soul forgets its source, it mistakes shadows for the real. A man longs for wealth, thinking gold will soothe the ache. A woman longs for status, believing admiration will heal the wound. But the ache returns, the wound reopens, because the true hunger was never for gold or status. It was for the beloved. He compares this to a moth circling a flame. The moth feels the pull, the irresistible attraction. But instead of surrendering to the flame, it exhausts itself in endless circles. Desire keeps us circling. We taste a little pleasure, then chase it again and again, never satisfied. Love, by contrast, does not circle. Love leaps into the fire. Love does not settle for shadows. Love burns for the real. Think of the times you have pursued something you thought would complete you. A relationship, an achievement, a possession. At first, it dazzled you. Then slowly, it dulled. The satisfaction faded, and you felt restless again. That restlessness is the soul's reminder. This is not what you truly seek. The beloved hides behind the veil, waiting for you to see through it. Rumi does not condemn desire. He unveils it. He shows us that the energy of desire can be transformed. Just as wood becomes fire when ignited, so too desire becomes longing when purified. Longing is holy. Longing is the moth surrendering to the flame, the heart surrendering to God. The veil does not need to be torn apart with force. It needs to be seen clearly for what it is, a thin covering over a radiant truth. He writes, "Don't get lost in the tangle of your desires. Be like a lion who breaks free of the net." Desires are nets, trapping us in repetition, in craving, in endless hunger. But love is the roar that breaks through. Love does not need more. Love already is more. Shams taught Rumi this lesson by presence, not by lecture. In Shams, Rumi saw someone who lived beyond the veil, someone whose eyes burned with a light that no possession could offer, whose soul was free of the nets of approval and fear. That presence tore away Rumi's own veils, exposing him to the flame of divine love. So Rumi urges us, do not curse your desires, but trace them back to their source. See through them. When you crave food, see the hunger for sustenance of the soul. When you crave affection, see the longing for union with the beloved. When you crave power, see the distorted echo of the soul's yearning for the eternal. Desire is a veil. Love is the unveiling. Step through, and you will discover that what you have been chasing was never out there. It was always within you, waiting to be seen. Rumi teaches, if you are irritated by every rub, how will your mirror be polished? To him, relationships are not distractions from the spiritual path, but the very workshop of the soul. Every friend, every rival, every stranger is a polishing stone. They scrape, they shine, they reveal. Through others we come to see ourselves, and through ourselves we begin to glimpse the beloved. We like to think of relationships as sources of comfort alone, places to feel safe, seen, admired. But Rumi reminds us that the deepest relationships are often the most unsettling. They challenge us, confront us, show us shadows we would rather ignore. The irritation, the conflict, the heartbreak. These are not signs of failure. They are the work of polishing. A mirror cannot reflect clearly without friction. When Rumi met Shams, it was not calm companionship, but fire. Shams provoked him, questioned him, tore apart his certainties. Their friendship was a storm that left nothing untouched. Yet in that storm, Rumi discovered the deepest calm of all, the presence of the beloved shining through. What seemed like conflict was in truth revelation. Shams was not only a friend, but a mirror, polished to such a shine that Rumi could see eternity in his gaze. And so Rumi tells us, see every person as a mirror. The one who wounds you is showing you where you are still clinging. The one who loves you is showing you what is already divine within. The one who leaves you is showing you that nothing is truly yours but God. Each encounter is a lesson. Each connection is a reflection. Think of the stranger who annoys you in passing. Why does such a small event stir such heat inside? Because the mirror is showing you a crack within. Think of the friend who comforts you when you are broken. Why does their presence heal? Because the mirror reflects the tenderness of the beloved already living in your heart. Rumi writes, don't get lost in your anger. Don't get lost in your adoration. Both are mirrors. Look at what they reflect, not just at the surface. To stay at the surface is to be trapped in reaction. To look deeper is to glimpse the eternal truth behind the play of forms. The beauty of mirrors is that they do not invent, they only reveal. The cruelty of mirrors is that they cannot lie. If you are willing to see, the mirror will show you everything. But the gift of mirrors is that when polished, they do not stop at the self. They reflect the sun. This is why Rumi says that love is recognition, not possession. To love another is to recognize the beloved in them. To be loved is to be recognized as a reflection of eternity. The mirror of relationships is not meant to trap you in longing or fear. It is meant to open your eyes. So do not flee from the mirrors that unsettle you. Do not idolize the mirrors that flatter you. Look deeper. Behind every face is the face of the beloved. Behind every reflection is the light that never fades. Rumi tells us, there is a voice that doesn't use words. Listen. To him, silence is not empty space but sacred presence. Words dance across the surface of reality, but silence is the ocean underneath. In silence, the beloved speaks most clearly. In silence, the soul hears what the mind cannot. We live in a world overflowing with language, news, arguments, gossip, endless chatter. The noise is constant. Even in solitude, our minds continue the noise, spinning stories, rehearsing old conversations, worrying about what might come. But Rumi points beyond all of this. He says that silence is the true language, and everything else is translation. The question is, are we willing to listen? Think of the pause between heartbeats. Life depends on those pauses. The pulse does not rush without rest. Think of music. The beauty is not only in the notes, but in the spaces between them. Without silence, music is only noise. Without silence, life is only noise. Rumi urges us to treat silence not as absence, but as fullness. In silence, masks fall away. We stop performing. We stop defending. We stop clinging to the need to explain ourselves. What remains is presence, pure, radiant, unshakable presence. In silence, you meet yourself as you are, and in meeting yourself, you begin to meet God. He writes, "Listen to silence. It has much to say." In silence, grief finds its voice. In silence, joy finds its depth. In silence, longing becomes prayer without words. This is why Rumi often fell into wordless ecstasy, hours of quiet that were not void but overflowing. He was listening not with the ears of the body, but with the ears of the soul. Consider moments when silence has overwhelmed you. Standing at the edge of an ocean at night, hearing only the rhythm of waves. Holding the hand of someone you love in a hospital room, where words would only weaken the truth. Sitting under a vast sky at dusk, too full of wonder to speak. These are not empty moments. They are full to bursting. They are the beloved speaking without speech. Rumi says that when we quiet the noise within, we begin to hear the subtle music beneath everything. The rustle of leaves, the hum of stars, the quiet pulse of our own breath, all become instruments in the orchestra of creation. The silence between words is the conductor. Silence frightens many because it confronts us with ourselves. In silence, we cannot hide behind distraction. Our wounds surface, our fears speak. But Rumi insists that this is precisely the gift. In silence, we face our shadows, and in facing them, we allow light to enter. Silence is not the absence of life, but the womb of transformation. So he teaches us not only through poetry, but through example. His whirling was not only dance, but silence in motion, a way of emptying the self until only presence remained. His verses flow with words, yes, but the words always point beyond themselves to the silence they cannot capture. In the end, Rumi tells us that words are fingers pointing at the moon. Silence is the moon itself. Look where the finger points, but do not confuse the finger for the truth. Step into the silence between words, and you will find that the beloved has been waiting there all along. Rumi reminds us, try to accept the changing seasons of your heart, even if you have never known such seasons before. Impermanence is not a flaw in existence, but its very rhythm. Everything that blooms will fade. Everything that rises will fall. Everything that begins will one day end. To resist this truth is to resist life itself. To embrace it is to discover beauty hidden in the passing. He writes, "Try to accept the changing seasons of your heart. Just as nature moves from spring to summer, from autumn to winter, so too does the soul move through joy and sorrow, fullness and emptiness. No state is permanent. Every emotion, every experience is a guest." He tells us, "Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond." This is not an easy teaching. We long for permanence. We cling to the moments of happiness, desperate to keep them from slipping away. We dread the moments of sorrow, wishing them gone forever. Yet Rumi shows us that impermanence is not cruelty. It is grace. Without endings, there would be no beginnings. Without loss, there would be no longing. Without the fall of leaves, there would be no spring blossoms. Think of the flower. Its beauty is made more precious because it fades. Think of music. Its power comes from the fact that it ends. A note held forever would be unbearable, but a note that ends gives space for the next to be born. So too with our lives. Mortality is not the enemy of meaning, but the source of it. Rumi himself lived through the impermanence of companionship. When Shams disappeared from his life, it felt like an unbearable loss. Yet from that absence came a flood of poetry. The wound of impermanence became the fountain of eternal words. Shams vanished, but love did not. Presence changed form, but did not die. This is the heart of Rumi's vision. Everything you lose returns in another form. Do not grieve as if the story is over. Grieve, yes, but also watch. Watch for the way love reappears, the way joy returns, the way light finds a new window. Life is not a straight line, but a dance, weaving endings into beginnings, sorrows into celebrations. He urges us to practice impermanence as devotion, to hold lightly, to release easily, to welcome change as the beloved in disguise. He says, "Don't get lost in holding. Be like a tree. Let the dead leaves drop. The tree does not resist. It trusts the cycle. It knows that loss is not the end, but the path to renewal. When we cling, we suffer. When we let go, we are carried." The dance of impermanence asks us not to stop the music, but to move with it, to let every step be what it is, fleeting, precious, alive. So let your heart dance through its seasons. Let joy come and go. Let sorrow arrive and depart. Let love transform and return in new forms. For impermanence is not the thief of life. Impermanence is life's greatest gift, reminding us to treasure every breath as sacred, every heartbeat as miracle. Rumi writes, "The ego is a veil between humans and God. To him, the greatest barrier is not the world, not suffering, not even death. It is the restless, demanding voice of ego. The ego insists, I am the center. I must be praised. I must be right. I must be in control. It is a king sitting on a fragile throne, terrified of being dethroned. The tragedy is that we mistake this fragile king for ourselves. We believe the ego's claims. We defend its pride. We feed its hunger. We fight for its survival. Yet Rumi reminds us that the ego is not who we are. It is only smoke covering the fire of the soul. To forget the ego is to remember the truth. But how do we forget something so persistent? Rumi warns us not to fight the ego with ego, not to attack it with more pride or fear. That only strengthens it. Instead, he teaches us the art of seeing. When we see the ego for what it is, a temporary mask, a costume stitched together from fear and desire, it begins to dissolve. No force is needed, only clarity. He writes, "Try to accept being ground, be crumbled, so wildflowers can grow where you are." The crumbling is the surrender of ego. The ground is humility. And out of that humility comes new life. When we stop clinging to our masks, we discover the face beneath them, luminous, eternal, free. Think of a candle burning at noon. In the light of the sun, the candle's flame is meaningless. Ego is that candle. In the presence of the beloved, its flicker vanishes. The light of the soul is greater than the flame of pride. Yet how often we cling to the candle, terrified of losing it, blind to the sun already shining. Rumi offers images again and again. The drop must forget itself to return to the ocean. The seed must break apart to grow. The mountain must crumble to become fertile soil. Each image points to the same truth. When the ego dies, the soul lives. He says, "If you are irritated by every rub, how will your mirror be polished?" The rubbing is the friction of life against ego. Every insult, every loss, every failure is sandpaper, polishing the mirror of the heart. If we resist, we remain clouded. If we allow, the polish reveals the face of the beloved within. Rumi himself knew the fire of ego and the freedom of its burning. Shams's presence was like a sword cutting through Rumi's pride. The scholar who had been admired, the preacher who had been respected, was undone by love. The ego screamed at the loss, but the soul rejoiced. Out of the ashes rose poetry that spoke not from pride, but from union. So Rumi tells us, "Let the false king step down. Let the fragile throne collapse. Forget the crown of pride and remember the humility of the ground. For only in humility can wildflowers grow. Only in surrender can love take root. Only in the burning of ego can the eternal flame be seen." The ego will resist. It will whisper, "Without me, you are nothing." But Rumi promises the opposite. Without ego, you are everything. You are not a drop longing for the ocean. You are the ocean, wearing the form of a drop.